So, welcome everybody to the second day of this conference. This morning is going to be devoted to the first of our two symposia. And the first one is on metaphysics, and more precisely on the notion of temporal existence. We will see how much the three speakers on the symposium actually decided to follow this fil rouge of the topic of temporal existence. I'm pretty sure that Fabrice Correia, the first one of our speakers this morning, has been pretty diligent about this.
Yes.
Thanks a lot for the invitation. This morning, I'm going to talk about temporal persistence, and more particularly, I'm going to offer a general characterization of endurance, perdurance distinction. So as you know, as you surely know, there are two main characterizations of distinction. Characterizations of distinction. One is neurological, so in terms of temporal paths. So you say that an object perdurance has temporal paths, persists through time by having temporal paths, and endurance is that way. And there is this other more recent locational characterization, which is going to be my starting point. Really, is going to be Cody Gilmore's neat characterization of a distinction in locational terms. Now, Gilmore makes strong assumptions in his account of distinction. In particular, he presupposes that occupants of spacetime are, as I would say, exact, and that means that they have exact locations. And we will see what that means in a minute. What I want to do really is to provide a much more general characterization that doesn't rely on these presuppositions and on other presuppositions that he makes. This characterization is based on my new proxy theory of location. So this is a very general theory of location that's not focused on time, space, or space-time. It's much more general than that. So I'm going to use this theory and apply it to the case of angles. Let me start with three notions, three locational relations, which are going to be crucial in what follows. So that's first the weakest of all, which people call weak location. So using George Parsons' class, we say that X is weakly located after the region R is not free of X. So in the diagram, you have an object O that is multiply located, and you can see it's gray. And you have 5 labeled regions, and O is weakly located at all of the labeled regions. Then there is what Anthony calls perfect location. An object X is perfectly located at a region R if valid for all regions S. X is weakly located at S, only if R equals S. So in the diagram, you see that object O is perfectly located. Fusion of R4 and other region. Okay, so Josh Parsons calls that relation exact location, which is very unfortunate because after that, people have used the label exact location for another relation, namely.
So can you say where is S and X in that diagram?
Okay, we can go there. So O is this object here. It's here and it's there. And the X and the R are just general variables, okay, just to characterize the relation general. Okay, so the exact location is another relation, so sublocation location. I take here Cody's characterization that is well suited for the case of when you think about location in space or space-time. It's not suited for more generally, so for other regions that we don't do, but for our purposes, that's going to be fine. So an object X is exactly located at region R. If X has or has at R the same shape and size at R and stands at R, in the same spatial or spatial temporal relations to other entities as well. So the qualifications between the brackets is due to his willingness to give room for multiple location precisely. So the object O in the diagram is exactly located at R4 and R4. So you see that's perfect location and location behave differently. If you give out multiple location, then the solution should be. So here is Gilmore's characterization. So he makes two key assumptions. So the first one I mentioned before, every occupant of spacetime is exact, namely as is one exact location. The second assumption actually is a bunch of assumptions concerning the structure of spacetime. So he assumes that spacetime is pointy, every region is a fusion of atomic regions. And he also assumes, for instance, that atmospheric composition of spacetime regions. Okay, so he puts forward two definitions. First, the definition of the path of an occupant of spacetime, and this is defined simply as the fusion of its exact location. By the first assumption, every occupant of spacetime will have a path. And he defines achronality, so the region R is said to be achronal if no points in the region, is absolutely before and no points in R. So this definition doesn't presuppose that the spacetime is massive. So here is, yes, so first he proposes a characterization of persistence, so an object X persists if its path is not achronal, so the path has a certain temporal depth. Then the object endures if it persists, and every location, exact location of the object is achronal, so the object's exact locations are always confined to that extended regions. And finally, the object perdures if it persists, and it exactly occupies the region R, if only if R is the object's path. Given the assumption of the first assumption, that second condition is equivalent to the condition that X has at most one exact location. So that's Gilmore's characterization. Now, Gilmore leaves out what I call inexact occupants, that is, occupants of spacetime which don't have any exact locations. I think in general we cannot simply rule out inexact occupants. So typical examples include cases of spatially point-shaped material objects, or fusions of such objects in a given spacetime. So in a given space, there is a space such that if you take any region of the space, that region will have two subregions separated by one distance. Okay. There are also examples of inexact occupants that I find less convincing. Now, not only do I think that one must leave room for inexact occupants, I also think that there can be inexact occupants that endure or perdure. Okay, that's all relevant for our concept. So, perduring inexact occupants seem to me to be incoherent. So, imagine it's currently spacetime, and you imagine that worm, okay, having an exact. You have this empty spacetime, and you imagine this pointy object perduring in that spacetime. And for entering inexact occupants, think of a spacetime with the following structure. So it's a fusion of 3D empty spatial hypersurfaces. Okay, so you fuse them all. So the temporal line is pointy, something. And you can very well imagine an object, an enduring object with such a structure. So, okay. So, Machiavelli has tried to characterize endurance in a donkey spacetime. I'm not going to go into the details. One big problem with his view, with his account, is that he takes the notion of the path of the occupant of spacetime as primitive. And the problem here is that it's hard to see what the path of of objects which don't have any exact location could be. Okay. So in conversation here is that this is a notion. Okay. I also tried to characterize endurance and perdurance in another very general theory of application, which takes the notion of entire location as a primitive. Now, there are several problems with that theory, I think. So one problem with the theory itself is that it doesn't leave room for a so-called nested multilocation. So you have a thing exactly located here, also exactly located at a super region. Okay? So the theory rules that out. So these are strange examples. You might think, well, that's not happened. Conceptually speaking, it doesn't seem to be coherent, and therefore the theory is not fully sound. Also, this general theory presupposes or implies that all occupants must be entirely located in some regions, which you might think is not necessary. And these problems affect the account. So let me now turn to the new theory of location, proxy theory of location. It's supposed to be, again, a very general theory of location, whose applications go well beyond location in space-time. The central idea of the theory is that objects capable of being multilocated occupy regions via proxies. Illustration with the case of exact multiple location, X is exactly located at two regions R S, if and only if the object X has a proxy that is exactly located at R, and it has a distinct proxy that is exactly located at S. Within this framework, you can define multilocation in a very neat way. So you say X is multilocated, it has two proxies, which are not multilocated at the very same region. So two proxies such that for at least one region, one of the proxies is multilocated at that region.
Can you elaborate what counts as a proxy?
Sorry?
Can you elaborate what counts as a
I'm
proxy?
glad you're there last time. Okay. So this definition of multilocation, as you can see, doesn't presuppose the notion of exact location. It's just multilocation. So the theory proper, I'm not going to give you all the details of theory, but I'm going to give you only a few elements which are useful. So it takes the notion of going proxy for or being a proxy of as a primitive. Using that relation, you can define being a proxy. So X is a proxy if it goes proxy for something. You can define what it is to be an occupant by proxy, P occupant, as something that I think that X is such an entity if something goes proxy for it. I'm going to assume two principles. The first one is that the proxy relation connects on the occupants system. And the second principle is that if something is a proxy, then nothing goes proxy for it. So this is an assumption that can be left out, in fact. I'm going to assume it for the sake of simplicity. We can discuss that whether we need many proxies of proxies. So what we have here, ontologically speaking, is this: we have the occupants. They include the occupants by proxy. They also include proxies, and they may include other things, which I will leave largely aside. So we will not talk about them. At least not much. Okay. So recall my characterization of multilocation. It's here. By that definition, no proxy is multilocated. Right? Well, again, being multilocated implies having proxies and proxies of proxies. Okay, recall the definitions of perfect location and exact location. here is a claim for occupants which are not multilocated, and for proxies, exact location and perfect location will coincide. So the thought, as I announced earlier, is that if you leave multiple location aside, then the two notions will coincide. That's the thing that I'm making here. Okay, so the theory takes the notion of root location as a primitive. Okay. So let's first deal with root location for proxies and other occupants that are not occupants by proxy. There are any. So we take this relation of root location as primitive, and we can define exact location as perfect location, as I said before. So for these entities, there's one primitive relation, root location, and exact location can be defined in terms of that relation. Now, for occupants by proxy, the definition, there's a definition of root location and of exact location. In terms of proxies, that's very idea. These entities owe their locations to proxies. Okay, so this is dashed out this way. We say that an object X is rootly located at R. If it has a proxy, that is rootly located. Similarly, you say that an object is exactly located at R. If it has a proxy, then it's exactly. Now you can see that although proxies cannot have distinct exact locations, on that account, occupants by proxy can. It's enough for them to have two distinct proxies, except looking at that's distributions. So that's the way multiple exact location is characterized in this way. Okay, now I come back to the issue of persistence of time. So first of all, some words about precedence and chronality. So in pointing spacetime, be they relativistic or not relativistic, we can, so that there's a relation of absolute precedence between regions which can be defined as a relation with points. Now, in Geneva spacetime, such a relation must be available. Also, you might think. Now, you won't define it in terms of relation between points, because other points, you may take it as a primitive. You actually define it some other way. So let's assume that at least in the kinds of spacetimes that's dealing with, there is such a relation that is. Once this relation is available, we can define a very general notion of chronality. So in pointy spacetime, that's the notion of chronality. Between regions, that's the definition that's general. Okay? Now, in Geneva spacetime, we will appeal not to a relation between points, but to a relation between regions. You will say that the region R is a kernel. If no two subregions of that region stand in that both types of spacetime, we will have that by conditional which corresponds to this definition. All right. Okay. So recall that Gilmore ignores possibility that in exact objects, so objects which don't have any exact identification. In the context of the proxy theory application, one can of course define the notion of being exact in the way I just defined, but there's a stronger notion of being super exact. Fine. You say that an object X is super exact if either it's not an occupant by proxy and it's exact, that's the case if you wish, or it is an occupant by proxy and each of its proxies is exact. So it's not that you have some proxies which are exact and some others which are not, but all of them. That's exact. Okay, so super exactness is stronger than exactness. Now, what I'm going to do in the next slides is characterize persistence and endurance perdurance can show as just signal that these characterizations are equivalent to labels if you assume that the objects in question are super exact. Okay, so first of all, a characterization of persistence. So I say that an object X persists if it's weakly located at two regions R and S, so that R precedes S. So that's a very general characterization. That definition doesn't presuppose that the space-time is quantity, and using the relation of precedence between regions, and that would not specifically between points. And note that the proxy theory here plays absolutely no role. Anyone having the notion of excitation theory will be able to apply that. Without that characterization doesn't presuppose. Okay, so here's a fact. The first collapse fact, as a state. If the object X is super exact, that is, either started by proxy and is exact, or all its proxies are exact, then the object persists in my sense. Sense. I'm not going to give the proof. Here are the only two locational principles which are used in the proof. The first one, so these are two principles that connect exact location and group. So the first one says that if you take an occupant S, then if that occupant is exactly located at region R, then if there's a region S that overlaps R, then X is located at S. So let's draw it here. So this is my region R. My object X is exactly located there, and what the principle says is that if you have a region S that overlaps region R, then the object X would be weakly located at R, and at S. Yeah, and then there is the other principle.
Sorry.
So there is the other principle that concerns not all occupants whatsoever, but the occupants that are not occupants by proxy. And it takes a kind of converse of principle. It says that if the object is exactly located at R, so that's the same assumption, then if it's weakly located at S, then S must go at R. You won't have that if the object X is not located, right? Because all right. Okay, so again, the important point here is that only these two locational principles are used in the proof. Otherwise, it's really basic logical principles that are very successful. Okay, let me move on to perdurance and endurance. The characterization of my characterization of perdurance is actually simple. It says that an object X endures only if it persists, and it's not Alright. So that means that it doesn't have any proxies which are not weakly located. Okay, so this is Cody's characterization. So the first clause in both cases is the clause of persistence, not just saying that to our product if the object X is super exact. Now, here is my second collapse fact. If the object is super exact, then it produces my sense, and if you produce sense. And here, once again, the only locational principles which are used in the proofs are the proof are discussed. So that's a neat result. That's what I wanted to get. Let me finally move on to endurance. The characterization is also quite simple. You say that X endures if it persists, and if it's, so that's the first condition. And the second condition is that it's P occupants, or my proxy, whose proxies do not persist. So each proxy of the object is non-persistent. So this is a reminder of previous characterization of endurance. And this is my third collapse fact. If the object X is super exact, then it endures in that sense. So again, that's the thing. And again, the only original principles used are the same thing. So very few assumptions to establish these collapse. Okay. All right. So here is a classification of persisting objects according to the Proxy theory location. So if an object persists, it can be either multilocated or multilocated or not. In the second case corresponds to the case of the object produced according to the count. Then, if the object produced, it can be either a P occupant or not a P occupant, so by proxy or not. There are these two possible cases. If the object is multiply located, that's only one case, because to be multi-located, we must have proxies. So by proxy. And in this case, if the object is multi-located, then either none of its proxies exists, in that case, endurance, enduring entities. And on the left, you have the case where the object has some proxies which don't exist. So this is an extra category. So you see that it's not that endurance and perdurance are incompatible, but they're not associated. You have that also. Okay, so that's the classification. So again, what was used here to establish the classification and the characterizations and the collapse is very poor. Okay, conceptually, you have the notion of proxy, which is substantial here. You have this notion and the notion of multiplication. So these are the two basic notions. And to establish the collapse principles, again, you have only these two principles, very weak principles connecting exactly and unification P1. So the conceptual apparatus is poor, and the principles are also very weak. Now, that's the last slide. What are proxies? So there are two ways of thinking. But forward, you can either take it mathematically seriously, say, oh, it's right, the world is that way, or you can think of it as a model true. In the first case, you will say that, well, you gives you truth conditions for claims of occasional claims, claims of endurance, perdurance, and so forth. In the second case, you will not say that, obviously, but you can say that, well, the theory helps you characterize the logical behavior of the notions. You can compare the situation with possible scenarios. You do have, in real life, so to speak, people who take the theory as face value, mathematically seriously. Lewis is one of them. And other people who just say, okay, it's true, it's just a very useful one, but it's just so there are really, I think, these two attitudes towards the Proxy theory of location. What's my view? So I think that the theory is at least a very good model tool. I think the theory is very powerful, so I've used only multilocation and proxy as primitives for the purpose of the application to endless perdurance, but the general theory also has only these. And what you can do with the theory is not just characterize endless perdurance, you can use it fully generally to characterize application in general. So I think, and you can characterize it also to say many other application locations. So perfect location, application, I know that you can define type location, non-desi location. Okay, so I think that the theory is at least a very good one. Now, what about the metaphysical sense of theory? There are several ways to go here. There's one that I find nice and strange. It's to say that these proxies are purely functional entities. So they believe their essence is exhausted by the role that they play in helping standard occupants occupy space-time or any other region. So that's having like this very functional, purely functional conceptuals. Now, you might think that, at least for the purpose of some applications, and in particular applications that have to do with concrete entities in the same space and time, the proxies will be other tools. So I'm thinking here, I'm giving two examples. The first one is connected to Daniel's transcendentalist theory of distance. So his view is that for a concrete substance to exist at a time t, it should be a participant in the energy that is occurring. So note that this is not a theory of temporal location for concrete substances, it's a theory of temporal existence for concrete substances. But if you modify this theory and take it to be a theory of temporal location, okay, for concrete substances, then you may well say, okay, the processes are events. So that in that particular application, I think the process events general, or perhaps some other things. So that would be one application where the processes are not characterized in purely my second illustration starts from the bundle theory of substances. So the view that substances, substances in particular, are bundles of universals. So that theory, if you buy into that theory, you may think that the proxies in this case are fusions of tropes of particularized properties. We take a bundle of universals. Each bundle will, each universal in the bundle will be instantiated in tropes. And you take the fusion of the tropes, and you will say, you might say that the fusion is a process. Substance. So one is the substance, the fusion of tropes to the region, and another one. So the thought here is that, so personally, I'm quite open to the relation stuff of the theory, but I think it's important to keep in mind that there are really these two takes that can happen on theory. And they are not automatic. The theory is a very good model tool, but it also can also, at least in certain applications, be taken seriously.
Thank you, Fabrice Correia. As Paul said, I think you used to say, clarity is courtesy, and the same holds for conciseness. So please try to keep your questions short. Keep your hands up while Thomas asks.
So just briefly, proxy theory sounds to me a lot like perdurance. So think about temporal extension of an object is typically space-like. Then we're used to saying it needs to be at a time. It's not fully there. It is at a time. It's not. It is extended. It needs temporal heights. That's what we traditionally say. So that it needs proxies sounds a lot like that, right? So one might say this could be understood as a space-like form of temporal extension, just a non-neurological one. If I take this metaphysically seriously. So I'm sure you don't think that, so I'd like to hear what you say.
Okay, so definitely the temporal bars play a similar role. So the object has its location at the time, and which are having the fact that so the role is at least at a certain point the same. One difference is that you don't need to think of as you said, temporal bars are parts of the objects, and you don't need to think of proxies as being parts. So perhaps one thought here could be maybe that's so I gave a list of possible applications or ways of making mathematical sense of proxies depending on the application. And then simply perhaps what I could do is add that will understand proxies. Right? Say, okay, so if you're 90% of your understand, then you may take my process to you have. So the key thing here is that the theory is much more general than several times now. Theory is also more general in the sense that it has applications everywhere. So it's not just confined to space, time, or time. It's really the key idea there is that the theory is supposed to make sense of multilocation in full generality.
Great, thanks, Fabrice. So I guess it's in contrast to Thomas's question. What if I take proxies to be digits? Then my proxy relation is, I'm going to pack all the stuff about the location relation into the proxy relation, right? And then I get multiple location in a fairly straightforward sense because I've got these proxies at these different regions which are located at themselves. That doesn't seem to be in tension with anything you said. Is that a way of understanding it, or does it not work out?
I guess formally speaking, there's no problem with this use of the theory, right? But the question is whether it's going to be useful in some way. My feeling is that it won't. So that because there's this puzzling phenomenon of issues of measureless in case, and trouble cases are other cases, and the thought is about given you're just suggesting you just don't explain anything, you just affirm that the phenomenon is there, right?
You've got my word.
Yeah.
Thank you. So, can I ask about time travel you just mentioned? It seems that you can't have during time travelers. Time travel involves spatial multilocation. Just because you're saying if it's multilocated, it's not during yet. The multilocation isn't doing any work in allowing it to exist at different times. So can you just sort of say how you're going to classify simple time travel cases?
Yes, let me just go back to the slide. The case of perduring time traveling entities would be a case of that category, right? So it's neither strictly speaking, it's not perduring, it's not strictly speaking perduring, but it's going to be in a you have proxies with a certain temporal length, right? So then actually it's an interesting question because it suggests another question, which is why did I define perdurance that way rather than also including some cases of that sort, right? And the reply here is is that, well, there's, basically I wanted to stick to the way Proxies was doing, and that's the way he was thinking of. But it's really terminological, because if you want to review also some of these configurations in the perduring category, just actually, yes, that's it. So that's, yeah, I just wanted that's something that's really terminological. That's right.
Giuliano is next.
Thanks. And I want to ask you if you can say something about expleurantism. So, how you distinguish in this framework, the case in which so you have temporal counterparts, because if they are the proxy, then you end up saying that the exploring entity actually is multilocated, right? So perdurance. And so how do you distinguish the cases in this framework?
It seems that stages are, you know, just like temporal parts. I could add that to my list of possible ways of thinking PBA solution of the process, I guess.
But it looks like you have to introduce a new primitive being a counterpart, because if the counterparts are proxies, then it's going to be right from the
You need to, I mean, of course you need to know the relation of counterparts. If you want to develop a theory. But there's nothing that yes, you need to do that. Yes, that's but that's maybe I'm misunderstood. But that shows is that the mere proxy theory plus the interpretation of the proxies in some way that goes into stages is not enough to give you a full theory, full experiences and to add something else. And I'm fine with that. Yes, if you want to take that, take these to help you give an experiences account of things, then you will need to have further relation.
So Pete is next.
Suppose I'm an endurantist. I may not believe that this thing has any temporal parts, I mean, as time. But also, I may not believe that it has any proxies. And why should I, if I don't believe in temporal parts, why should I believe in proxies? And so why should I accept your characterization of what it is to be an endurantist?
Well, in that case, you will presumably, not take the theory of seriously, and you will be perhaps in the camp of those who think that the theory has formal virtues. It's a nice way of modeling these branches. You have the same, again, same attitude with the possible words and semantics. You yourself are happy to use the formal theory for some formal purposes to characterize the logical necessity, let's say. Without taking the metaphysics, without taking the theory seriously. Right? So I guess in that case, I mean, you will find my theory useless as a metaphysician of endurance. Useless as a metaphysician.
There is a difference between the two cases, because even if I don't think I can explain the ordinary modal idioms in terms of possible worlds, I can still reconstruct possible worlds talk. I can say, yes, there are possible worlds, but I understand them in terms of the ordinary notion of possibility. But maybe my endurantist doesn't even think that they can make sense of the notion of a proxy.
Yes, but then the next question is whether it's really important in the modal case, whether it's really important that you can recover so far those modal terms. So, there's this kind of instrumentalist table on the semantics, which doesn't care at all about that. Let's say, look, I have the mathematics of the world, and that's enough for my purpose. So that would be the same attitude towards the theory.
Alessandro is next.
Thanks, Fabrice. So suppose I think the model is out with respect to the proxies. Is there a way to structurally differentiate proxies from order pairs of objects and regions?
No, I guess you can remodel the whole thing in the way you suggest this.
This is more understandable. You have just more.
Yes. Okay, so if the only aim was to formally model the phenomenon, then this is more economical. Because you already have the regions, you already have the objects. Yes. But I offer the theory in a disjointed way. So you can take it as a model tool. You can also take it perhaps seriously in this way. Yes, that's correct.
Yazan?
Yeah, thank you. My question is related to something you said you wouldn't cover for the sake of simplicity. I can't help but wonder, objects are not the occupants, and how can they be distinguished from the occupants? So, does this table have proxies? How do you know that it does or it doesn't? So, where does the other type of objects fit in this framework? How can we distinguish them?
So on some applications, it's going to be definitely the case that they have proxies. So take the bundle theory of substances, with the idea that the universals are essentially enclosed, then the table will have proxies, even if it's not actually but there's no general kind of divide. It's so yeah. So I yes, there's no general. Yeah, I'm not sure.
But if you believe in bundle theory, then basically every object is made up of bundles. So you cannot just say that some objects have proxies and some don't, right? So either under one framework, all objects have proxies, or they don't.
No, because you could.
If you take proxies as bundles like bundles of tropes.
You could also have an ontology lens, for instance, of space, and then take them to be direct occupants of which occupant space and without process. So your ontology might not be rich enough to include both things which have process.
Raul is next.
Thank you. This is about acronality and precedence, the way that you characterize acronality in general terms of precedence. And I think the way that you had it was that in a Ganti spacetime, we're going to have acronality just whenever no two subregions of a region. Yeah, exactly. So, is this definition supposed to allow for there to be achronal regions in a Ganti spacetime?
So you will have. So remember my funny fusions of 3D Ganti spacetime.
Yeah.
So then you will have achronal regions. So within each plane, hyperplane, the regions that you can get there will not be achronal, right?
But like it seems that if I have Ganti time, every
okay, the example.
So
That's
yeah.
of course if you have Ganti time, then that's.
But then your instantaneous. So in your spacetime, the Ganti spacetime is going to have. It's not going to be basically allowing you to have. Fail to have instance. Is that how you're thinking about it?
It's not going to allow you to have instances of proxies located in achronal regions.
But the achronal region is. I'm not seeing how we have a Ganti spacetime and that's supposed to allow us to understand how we can have gunky time to, if we were to have.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
okay, I see. So I gave you this example of the fusion of.
Yeah.
Precisely because it was a good example to illustrate the possibility. Right?
Right.
Now, again, if you take the temporal dimension to be clunky as well, then that won't go right. Now, there's a corollary kind of question that goes right over there.
Yeah.
Is there another kind of property of regions, so that would not be regularity, that would apply to space-time, that would allow us to define a notion, something like the notion of measurements. Okay. I don't know whether there's a nice or well-behaved property of regions that give us what we want. In particular, perhaps one reason is that it's not clear what you would want then, right? Exactly what sort of behavior you would like objects to display.
Thank you. Okay, next is Daniel.
I wanted you to clarify. Thank you for this interesting talk. I wanted you to clarify.
To clarify the first notion you introduced of an object being located in a region. You were referring, now I think I understand, as an object located in a region at a given time. So you kind of have the assumption that you have a space-time already foliated for you in a particular way, and you are interested in locating when an object is located at a particular region on a particular foliation, right? But then my question is, if you don't restrict the way I'm going to compare regions in which the object is going to be located, every object is going to be multi-located because almost all objects we tend to describe as in terms of worldviews. So it will intersect regions in the different foliations basically all the time. So you will have multi-location as one of the most conspicuous properties of objects, and I probably don't think that that's what we want.
No, so first point is that I don't restrict the location relation to spatial region. So really the idea is that the location exactly. So as I use this term, I'm supposed to apply to spatial temporal regions. Okay, so there's no restriction there.
The object is achronal, so how can it's temporal? If your regions are achronal, then they cannot be regions in space-time.
Yes, they can.
But they are not open subsets of space-time.
No, if you take the micro and you take something that sounds more or less shape, so provided that.
I mean, it's not going to be open. It cannot contain any open subset.
Why should it?
In order to be able to contain other objects, it's interior. Doesn't mean an interior.
No, it's not that. I mean, the objects will have adapt their topologies to the region. So that was the first part of the reply. So I don't presume you said that. Well, the regions to start with are just space-time arbitrary regions. Then, of course, in some cases you can foliate, in some cases you cannot. In the example of the gunky there was a foliation. So that I was classical, somehow classical. But in general, the theory, all the notions are supposed to apply to space-time regions that are as so on supposed to be stationary regions.
Your region is a chronal. All your regions are a chronal. Then most objects will be multi-located because they will be located in different, different times. The normal objects will be represented by word cubes.
I can't announce word cubes, and typically they will be the perduring objects in that characterization. So if you have this object that will make sense, that has just one exact picture, which is full dimensional, and that's really important.
It's not a location because your regions are a chronal, so no four-dimensional region.
No, it's not that. My region, I mean, some of the regions I'm talking about are chronal.
So next is Philip. I think it's going to be the last question. I'm sorry for the other people in the queue, including myself. But
I'll be quick. Thanks. Like others, I'm not sure this will accept the characterization. And so here's one way of putting it that an endurance may want it to follow from the definition that if a thing endures during an interval of time, it exists at least at 2 instants. And unless you make further assumptions of proxy relations, that doesn't really follow from your definition. So one might think it's just kind of perdurantist proxy of real endurance.
So the key notion in the question is that we're just at a time, and I haven't given any account of that. So I could be, permanentist and say, look, well, it might be a or I can have a substantial version at time. For instance, I say, well, you exist at time if you have a process located at time. That's always go.
okay, join me in thanking Fabrice.